Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm your co-host, Kevin, K-Daddy from Dirty South, the ATL, Hotlanta, Georgia. I'm a post-production master, filmmaker, and horror nerd.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
And I'm your co-host, John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and my campfire friends? This week is part 2 of our Ghost Stories special, where we have guests bring their own personal paranormal experiences to you around our virtual campfire. So have a seat, lean in a little closer, and join us as we get lost in the world of ghostly experiences. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Cinematic, captivating, terrifying, and intense. Trap 2021 will return live May 21st through the 23rd. New categories, new prizes, and still no entry fee. Visit trapfilmfestival.com for more information.
All right, and welcome back. Like Ashley said, we have a very special guest once again today. We have Taunya Gren. Taunya, how are you doing?
I am doing very good. I'm very good.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you on. I mean, our listeners have heard me ramble on about this amazing meta mama that I have. So, guys, this is my meta mama, and I am stoked for you all to meet her.
Aw. Well, hopefully I won't disappoint.
Such a pleasure to finally put a voice to the name.
So I'm very excited to have you on. We are doing part 2 of Ghost Stories today, and I know you have just numerous accounts. So we'd love to have you share them with us.
You want me to just dive in and tell you some stories?
I would say, do you guys have any questions for her? Or do you want her to just go into her first one?
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Have you always believed in the paranormal before you started having experiences, or did it take an
No.
experience to give you that belief?
Well, let me qualify that. In paranormal things like ghosts and stuff, no. But I started having experiences pretty young. In other things like psychic or energy work abilities, yes, because it's been running in my family for the last 3,000 years. So everybody has a gift of some kind. So you just grow up with it. It's just like, okay, people can answer the phone before it rings. People can answer your question before you ask. My mother could move things with her mind. She couldn't control it very well. So it was mostly when she was very upset, And so when you're raised in that kind of an atmosphere, you have an more open mind. But for paranormal things, I didn't really believe until my second real experience. The first real experience, I didn't even realize that was what it was until retrospect had me looking back going, oh, wait, this thing happened, all of these pieces fell into place. And it was like, okay, so that was a ghost experience. But I didn't think it was at first because I was pretty young.
What was the first one? You mentioned there was one that you recognized.
The first one I recognized?
Yep.
Well, I'm going to put these two together because they were kind of back to back. They were the same year when we lived in the same place.
Okay.
So the first thing happened, me and my brothers, at the time, my sisters weren't born yet, had been invited to go spend the night over at a friend's house who lived up the canyon by us. And they had this big fancy house with all of these like taxidermied animals because the dad was a hunter. And that was not creepy to us. It should have been. Now it would be. But we decided we were going to all sleep outside in sleeping bags at the edge of their yard, which led down onto it had a fence, but it led down onto like a creek and, some really beautiful stuff. So we spent the night out there. I was 9 years old. And in the middle of the night, we heard a car drive up right below us on the creek, like right there. And a car door open and somebody get out and start walking around down there. So we got up because we were like, wait, we don't remember seeing a road down there. So we got up and we went and looked over the fence and there was nothing there. But we could still hear the footsteps And so we went and laid back down, and then we heard the car door close and the car drive off again. But once again, there was nothing there. So we just assumed that it was an echo from, the road, which was a ways away and stuff like that. Didn't think anything of it until later. So we go just a few months later, and the house that we lived in was a very old house. It was on 9 acres of land that had these odd hills spaced every so far on the pasture, and we love to climb the hills and stuff like that. So my mom and my dad, we have my first baby sister, and the night that they brought her home from the hospital, and they had the crib in the living room because it was a small, very old house, we all woke up at the same time, and we were all afraid, and we all knew, even as little children, that there was something bad in the living room where my baby sister, my brand new baby sister, was. And we all went to my parents' room, and my mom had woke my dad up and told him to go get the baby out of the living room. And we all laid in bed that night, awake the whole night, afraid to leave that room because there was something out in the living room. And we didn't know what it was. We just knew that we could feel it, and it was terrifying. So the next night, that didn't happen, and everything was fine. It went back to normal. And then a year later, just over a year later, my next little sister was born. And the first night, once again, the first night they brought her home from the hospital, the exact same thing happened, where we all woke up and went, whoa, there's something there, and we're scared, and we're kids, and we're going to go climb in mom and dad's bed, and mom's going to have dad bring the baby out of the living room, and we're going to all sit in that room together all night awake because something terrible was out there that we couldn't see it. You just felt it. And we didn't have another baby in that house, and so it never happened again. But we found out, or I found out years later when I was looking at, that those hills that were in our pasture that had been built on an Indian burial ground, and that those were probably barrows. And if the way the spacing was, there was probably one right under where the house had been built. So take that as you will, but all we knew is that as little children, something out there was very scary that we couldn't see. And that was my first real experience going, okay, that's real. That's not just a story. I was 9 at that time, 9 and then 10.
Was that the only time that you guys had camped out at the edge of your pasture? So the only time you'd experienced that first scenario?
That first scenario, it was at a neighbor's house.
Oh, that's right.
And yes, that was the only time that we ever went to that house and the only time we camped out there. So doing research as an adult on that area, I did find out later, because I'm very curious about that stuff now that, once you realize, oh no, it's real, you get very curious about, okay, what was it that I experienced? What could possibly have done that? And so I did research as an adult, and I found that there was a body found down there at one point back in the 70s that had been murdered. And so maybe it was a reflection of the sound from the road, but the road was very far away. It was very quiet there. So that would be very strange to me, just logistics wise. But that was also an area where a murdered body had been found. Maybe what we were hearing was that last moment, when they were brought there. I don't know.
Given what you know now about the metaphysical world, what do you think it was in the other scenario with the babies?
I don't think that was a ghost, because ghosts don't feel that bad, at least in my experience. They can be scary, they can be lost. They don't feel like that. They're not so terrifying. So I think it's what, cultures call it all a different kind of thing. They call it inhumans, they call it demonics, they call it different things. But they're negative, amorphous entities. And some of them will stay in one place, but most of the time they don't. So, I talked about the barrows and stuff, but I really don't think that was it. I honestly don't think it was the ghost of some past Native American that only came out when there was a birth to be all scary. I really do think it was some sort of a negative entity that was trying something else and couldn't succeed. So that's my thoughts. Other people go, oh no, it was a ghost from the barrows. Maybe it was. I don't know. But that house has since been torn down, and now it's just parking lot.
Yeah, and I don't think that they have to be I guess they don't have to be independent of one another. Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe, especially with sacred areas, they tend to generate more energy and draws that way. So it's possible just
Yeah.
being on an energetic space like that kind of assisted that entity into finding its way over towards where you were at.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think it probably was, is just an opportunist that fortunately did not succeed.
Was that experience in conjunction with your family's history? Was that something that caused you to want to learn more and educate yourself more about that side of life?
Actually, no, not for a really long time, because our experience has not been, well, let me say, I have a sister who sees the dead. Um, Everybody in my family has a gift of some kind, but they're all different. And it terrifies her. She does not want that gift. She hides from that gift. She chooses where she lives based on how more or little she sees there. It's a very scary thing for her. But she's just seeing things that are there. But I don't have that gift. I don't see that. I have a daughter that does, but I do not. That's not my thing. And so I kind of always ignored it unless it like hit me right in the face. And then you deal with it, you go on. It's just part of life, death and life. Our world is made out of energy and matter. I think it would be pretty boggling to me to think that matter was the only part of our world that had life when we ourselves are made out of energy and matter. And when our matter part goes away, energy doesn't go away like matter does. It doesn't change like matter does. So it makes sense to me that there would be something more. But as especially as a kid at that age, and younger and teenagers and stuff, I knew it was there. I knew it was real, but I didn't care because I knew it couldn't hurt me. I guess that would be more the thing.
So that was when you were 9 or 10. What is your most memorable interaction with the supernatural as an adult?
As an adult, there's been, there's a lot. There's a lot. One of the first ones dealing with negative entities directly was an apartment that I lived at in Utah, and it was me and my youngest daughter when she was 16, and it was just this little basement apartment. And when we first moved in, it was fine, and then neighbors moved in next door, and I have a feeling that they're part of what drew whatever it was. But then we'd start getting these shadow people, which I'd never really seen or dealt with before at that point. And they generally congregated in my daughter's room. They wouldn't come in my room, or it wouldn't come in. But every single person who was in our apartment after dark had an experience of some sort. Every single one without fail. If you were in the living room after dark, you would start to see black shapes crawling across the floorboards and across the walls. The TV static would begin to manifest images and voices every now and again. We would get scratches on our exposed skin. And in one thing, my daughter woke up one night with a black eye that was shaped very specifically that she'd never gotten, she didn't remember ever getting. And then the very next night, I woke up with the exact same black eye on the other side. So just, and scratches on her arms on exposed skin. And she would wake up and see a shadow person standing over her, and it always scared her and it freaked her out. She'd come and sleep in my room and stuff. And so it wouldn't go in the kitchen, it wouldn't go in my room, but it would be in the front room and in the front part of the apartment, these things. It was very disturbing. The most disturbing part wasn't the shadow things or the scratches and stuff. Those were spooky, but not life-threatening. The most disturbing part was that if you were in the apartment for any length of time, you started feeling like you should commit suicide. And that is absolutely true. I am not a depressed person. Ashley can tell you, I'm actually that major optimist. And I would start feeling like, just life is too hard. I'm despairing, and then I'd go out of the apartment and I'd be like, what was that? I'm fine. This is great. Life is great. And then you go in there, and if you're in there for a few hours, you start to feel more and more down. If you're in there for several days without leaving, you start feeling like, I should just kill myself because life is going to be terrible. And when I realized that it was something to do with this, then I was able to start taking action. And we did all kinds of things. Because I'd never dealt with it directly that way before. We were getting advice from all kinds of people. Put salt on the doors and windows, do this and that, call in your bishop, have, a priest bless it and stuff like that. And we did all of that. And the most it did is make it stop for 2 weeks, and it came right back. And I think it's because somebody else was drawing it that we didn't have access to in one of the other apartments. It all came to a head one night. I was working at that time as a job during graveyard shift, where I was translating phone calls for the deaf. And one night at work, I got a phone call from my oldest daughter saying, "Mom, something's wrong with Kayla. You need to go home." And I was like, uh-oh. So I did. I got off and I ran home, and Kayla was in my room in absolute hysterics. And now remember, she's 16 at this time, and she is literally hysterical. She's hiding in my bedroom. She can't talk. She's crying so hard. And so I'm in like, okay, what happened? What's going on? What happened? What happened? And finally I got her calmed down enough to try and tell me what happened. And apparently she was in bed. She was going to sleep. She's 16. She's texting her sister, Angel, and stuff. And all of a sudden she hears these voices. She says it's like 1,000 voices, and they're screaming in absolute agony. And they're saying, "Save me. help me, save me. And there's like thousands of them all around her. And as soon as that happened, she couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. She was like paralyzed and she can't breathe. And Angel's on the phone going, Kayla, 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 are you breathing? Kayla, are you breathing? So that helped her start breathing again, is that interruption of this voice, this phone call that came through because the text had like frozen, but the voice didn't stop until she left the room and went into my room and was having a panic attack. And that was it. And finally I said, you know what? I don't know how to beat this yet, so we're just going to move. And that's what we did. We gave our notice the very next day.
Wow.
Don't play with that. I'm not playing with that.
Yeah, I would not either. That's
Yeah.
intense. Did you ever revisit that location after you, because you've really grown and evolved into your light work? Have you ever revisited that location?
I have, because I was very concerned that the family that moved in, I told I'm not afraid to talk about anything. I told the landlords exactly why we were moving. I said, there's this thing, it's doing this and this and this. And the wife believed me and the husband absolutely did not. And so the next people that came into that apartment was a nice little family with small children, and that made me very concerned. So as I've grown and as I've learned more, I did go back. But here's something you'll know. So remember that circle up in the mountains, up in the canyon, Ashley?
Yes.
That apartment is in a direct line from that right down the canyon. I went back there after we had cleared that place, and there was nothing. There was no sign of anything there at that point. So I did a circle around it just in case, but at that point, it wasn't there.
And you had also said something earlier that I had never in a million years have even remotely thought about living in an apartment, and if somebody in a like upstairs unit, downstairs unit, or a unit next door, if they're practicing something, like I've never thought about like the repercussions of that going to other units.
Yeah. Well, and we kind of think we know who it was, but I don't have any proof or evidence or anything. But the guy that lived next door to us in the other lower unit was a nice guy. We would see him going to work and stuff, and he was a single guy, and we'd always say hi, and he'd say hi, and that was it. And then he had a girlfriend that moved in, and she'd be sitting on the stairs with her hoodie pulled down all over her face like this, and I would say hello, and she wouldn't respond, and stuff. And then, but when she was walking, she would respond just fine. But when she's sitting in that doorway on the stairwell, just hunched over with the hoodie over her face, she would not respond if you spoke to her. And so it was just an odd thing. It's like, it wasn't all the time. It was only when she was sitting in that spot. And it made me wonder if she had something to do with that. Because right when she moved in is right, the timing adds up. That's when things started happening.
Wow.
The whole apartment thing kind of reminds me of when I lived up in Aurora. We had a duplex it was a duplex, something like that. And I would always see like the shadow figure on the stairs that would go up to the bedrooms. And it was a guy with a hat. And a lot of people have actually talked about seeing a shadow figure of a guy with a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just freaky. Like I'd be sitting there watching TV because where we had our TV was basically at the side of the staircase that went upstairs, so we'd be facing the staircase, and I would always see it just standing there, and I could never really see a face or anything, but I could see just the shape. And I don't know, I'm never really a super angry guy. I mean, you guys know I'm pretty mellow, whatever.
Yeah.
There are times when I get upset, but I don't get super, super angry. But living in this apartment, I don't know. After seeing all that, I don't know if that was affecting me or what, but I turned into a total asshole and was not proud of it at all. And at one point, I remember I was sitting there with my fiance in our living room. You could see into the kitchen, and we were just sitting there watching TV. And all of a sudden, she jumps up and runs to the front door. And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "I just saw somebody in the kitchen." And I'm like, "Okay, there's the patio." They wouldn't, we'd hear the sliding door open to the patio if they were coming in. So I go in and I look, nobody there, of course, but she said that she had saw somebody kind of like walk in and then like turn around with their hands up and like kind of doing the hokey pokey or whatever. And it scared the crap out of her. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I believe that there was somebody there that she saw something, but I don't know what it was.
If you had to tell a child who's experiencing something that might be scaring them, or even a skeptic who doesn't believe but is experiencing something that they can't understand and truly being terrified by whatever it is, what would you tell them?
First of all, they're not crazy. They're absolutely not. It's real. I mean, like I said, it makes sense. Our world is made out of matter and energy. And, one doesn't have all of everything and the other not. So they're both, and so it makes sense that there's things that are made out of energy. Our energy doesn't go away, and that's science. So the energy that we are doesn't go away. And so it's real. It doesn't mean that it's bad. Trust your gut. If it feels like it's bad, bring light things, light a candle. You might feel a little crazy. You don't have to tell anybody, but do it and you'll feel better. You will absolutely feel better. Second of all, I'm going to reiterate again, trust your gut. If it feels bad, it's bad. If it doesn't feel bad, it's probably a ghost or something like that. That is just there with you. Once again, do light meditation or light a candle, put a little salt onto your pillow. There's a lot of easy ways to protect yourself. But most of all, you are not crazy. Millions of people have these same exact things happen to them. And whether you want to believe it or not, it is common and it's okay.
I wonder if that is one of the most unspoken but most common things that we all have with each other around the world. Like we would have more in common if we were actually open about what we've experienced and what we don't understand.
Yeah, versus being scared. Every time I open up and talk about it, there's always that sense that, people might think I'm crazy. They might think I'm just that crazy old lady with the white hair, whatever. But those aren't the people I'm talking to.
Mhm.
It's the people who are going, I had something I don't understand. I'm afraid. Because afraid, we don't want that. That's a negative emotion.
Yeah.
Let's not be afraid. Well, and most of it, we don't need to be afraid. It's just natural. It's part of the earth. It's not a scary thing. And your gut knows which one it is, if it makes you feel scared, trust that. If it makes you feel uncomfortable just because it's unfamiliar, that's a different thing, we can trust ourselves. We were all, as human beings, we've been given this sense, this intuition, people call it, or different things. We all have it. How strong it is just depends on how much we listen to it. And you will never go wrong listening to your intuition and taking the action. You don't have to tell anybody, but when I speak out, it's for you. It's for the people who don't feel heard or are having these experiences, and it's okay.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today, Tanya.
Oh, you're very welcome. I love you guys.
I'm so glad that I got to see you and they finally got to meet my meta mama. I love you so much.
I love you too, honey. I love you a lot. And you guys, thank you so much for inviting me. Hopefully, the person who needs to hear this can hear it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Well, everybody, that was Tanya. Thank you so much, Tanya, for coming on to the show. And now we have the amazing Luana. Thank you so much for coming back to be a guest on our show, Luana.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for having me again.
Thank you for coming back, Lou.
I want to try and get you on the show as much as possible. I just love having you here.
Thank you. That means a lot. It's actually fun. I love talking paranormal stuff. So
Me too. I'm going to start calling it Supernatural Sunday because we just like all the things we discuss every Sunday. I love it.
That's actually really cool. I like that.
Supernatural Sunday. We're not talking about the TV show. Much better than the TV show.
Of course it is.
So today we're continuing our episodes of ghost stories and talking to people about their personal experiences. And I know that you shared some on your ghost hunting episode with us, but we'd love to hear more.
yeah, I think in the last episode when we talked together, you guys had asked me what led me down this path to become a paranormal investigator. And I still go back to that first experience that I ever had, which was I was like lying in my bed on my right side one night when everything kind of went cold in my room. It was like a bone chilling feeling all the way down to the core, my spine. And I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. That was one thing that happened that I wanted to move around. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. But when I was able to look at my left side was up in the air. So when I looked at my left side, I saw a hand kind of patting the side of me really gently. And I didn't really know what to make of it at the time, but I always pick up on either what the spirit carries, being an empath, I kind of can pick up on emotion a lot. And so even though I was kind of terrified because it was the first time I had ever had this kind of an experience where I was paralyzed, I couldn't say anything, I couldn't speak. I felt peace. I felt the emotions that this particular spirit, perhaps that's what I call it, because that's what I feel like it was peaceful. As I kind of came to, I never like saw the face, right? It's just kind of a weird like experience. Like I don't know if I just didn't know to like look up at the face. I saw the fingers, and I just, when I came to, I was able to finally move around. I knew that it almost felt like, that what you would experience when somebody dies. And I didn't really have a lot of logic when I came to. I just was like, wow, that was really weird. And I think I've mentioned this before. I always kind of laugh about it. But at the time, it was like Oprah Winfrey was big in my world because I was a teenager and she was on TV a lot. And I used to watch her show. And I just remember thinking Oprah would have something like this on her show. And it would be, this is what it is like when somebody passes away, like somebody picking up on that. And I kind of looked at the clock, and then I went back to bed, and I tried to fall back asleep, even though I was kind of shaken up with the whole experience. I still was going to try to go back to sleep. And a little bit later, the phone rang, and I could hear my dad, like my mom and dad's room was like upstairs from where I was. And I could hear them walking to answer the phone. And then about 5 minutes afterwards, my dad came down and he knocked on my door and he said, Grandpa passed away about an hour ago. And so when I looked at the clock, and when that had happened, that was an hour earlier, and it just all kind of hit me like that was my grandfather. And, when I stopped and I was like thinking about this after the fact, I kind of felt like I know why he came to see me, maybe on his way out. I couldn't kind of like put, like, if he could see anybody, did he see multiple people, or did he just come to say goodbye to me? Because like I kind of felt like I was close to him, but like maybe there would be people higher priority that he'd want to like see on his way out. I don't know. It was kind of a weird concept to try to put together, but that was I had gone to the hospital when he was dying, and that was my first real experience with death. And I just remember him seeing me upset that he was, all like tubed up and that kind of thing. And so and I just remember lying there thinking like, how could his body be like physically miles away, yet I have no doubt that he was in my room. And so that's kind of what really like led me to investigate the paranormal, was just that experience that started it all. And I kind of felt like that's why I picked up on, he wanted me to feel his peace. Like he wanted me to know I'm okay. So that was the first experience that I really had with ghostly encounters. And it led me to like have a lot of questions in my mind.
I sometimes wonder if people that are sensitive, like yourself, have like an energy beacon that shine just super bright in almost like this gray world. And so maybe you were just shining super bright and he was able to kind of hone in and beacon to you. Do you think that maybe it's because you're sensitive to that's why you were able to be visited?
I do think that has a lot to do with it. And I think as I, started investigating the paranormal and had more experiences like that, I do feel like that is a lot of it. Like you're just open, your senses are kind of wide open. And, at the time I was 17, and I feel like, I feel like young kids are especially kind of are more in tune. Sometimes we shut it down as we get older. And, I think I was still at that age though, where I was young enough to like just have it wide open without really having to think twice about it, like without trying. Whereas an adult, like I've had to really work to open up some of those channels again. But I think that as I started investigating the paranormal, that really came to me is when you are wide open and when you do have some sensitivities or intuitive abilities that are easier for you, maybe that's how they communicate. They choose to go to who they can communicate with. That's one experience.
I like that. That's really sweet. I've heard people's experiences with relatives that come to, as they're passing on to say goodbye. And I think that's beautiful. So
yeah, it was definitely like I've never connected with my grandfather since then, but I just feel like it was his perfect way to tell me like, don't worry about me. Like, I'm okay. Like I'm going to be okay. And, I just need you to know so that you don't, cause he knew I was sad. He knew I was torn up about him being sick. And that was his way of just telling me it's okay. I'm at peace. It's all good. So I think, the other experience I had was had one experience where I could see spirit, like I look at everyone else. And that was really, that was big for me. And it was right after, which I think is really interesting. I always mention this, but I was getting Reiki certified. So, Reiki deals a lot with your energy in different energy fields and being able to feel energy. And so I had just got a Reiki attunement with level 1 certification that I was going through. And after that attunement, my senses, I feel like were blown wide open with that. And so I had gone to the Stanley Hotel to an event and for some investigations there. My mother happened to go with me on that particular trip. And we had just like had some other experiences. She had woke up the same night that this happened, she woke up a little earlier in the night, and we had the TV on where I was kind of like still awake. We both drifted off and we had the TV on, but she had something touch her arm. And so she rolled over and she like kind of woke me up and said, I had this experience where, I feel like something touched me. And so as we went back to bed a little bit later, I awakened again. This time I was like partially paralyzed again. I couldn't say anything. The difference is that I could see just like I was seeing any physical living human being with my eyes, but he was over by the dresser and he was just like about maybe 5 or 6 years old. And he was, it was a little boy and he had period clothing on. He had like a gray vest with 3 buttons and a white shirt underneath it and short pants. And I don't know the type of hat, what they call it, but the kind that kind of is scrunched in the middle, that kind of clip. I don't know what it's actually called, but it was just very not this time period. And so I was looking at it and he startled me because it was the middle of the night. And I was like, and I just remember I'd been working, Kevin and John know Kathy, who is our medium in our group. And at the time, Kathy was working with me and she always told me like, try to, if this happens, because I was telling her sometimes things come to me when I'm like resting, when my senses are wide open. And she said, try to communicate in your mind. Like, have you ever tried to reach out and have that communication in your mind? So I did this time. And I was all flustered, but I said, I don't mind you being here. Just please don't scare me, because I was really kind of terrified at the time. And again, I picked up on his emotion and he was just like so excited that I could communicate with him. Like he was getting noticed and that I was actually communicating with him in some way. And he just was happy. And then he just kind of left me alone. I think he kind of knew that I was a little startled, and I felt bad afterwards because I was like, that was such a cool experience. I wish I wouldn't have freaked out the way that I did, but it was middle of the night and you see something that's not supposed to be in your room. So that was the clearest I've ever seen spirit. I've never seen it like that to that degree since. But I think it was such a neat, unique experience. I had gone down to the front desk in the hotel the day after and told the lady, she was a friend of mine who was working down there. And I said, I saw this little boy and I described him. I was like, he had I described what he looked like and his age. And she said, oh, he's like a lot of people report seeing him. That's one of the frequent roamers in the hotel. And I just thought that was so cool that like, not only did I like describe, to her what he looked like, but it was something also for like being able to trust like what comes to you and what you're seeing, that you're not crazy, that like what you are seeing is maybe validated by other people's experiences. And so she's like, yeah, like they've described the same gray vest that you had, like they described him in the same clothing and stuff like that, which I thought was really neat. So
I wonder if they have like a book that guests can write in to state their experiences and whatnot, just so you can see the similarities throughout the history.
That would be really neat. I know they used to have like I think down where like the Steamers Cafe was on the very bottom, they had like a TV that used to kind of play some of the photographs and stuff that they captured. But it was really neat to like hear that other people had seen the little boy roaming around. So that was really cool.
We talk a lot about feeling and seeing and the things associated with that, but have you ever smelled like supernatural presences?
I've smelled things that weren't physically there at the time. Like, for example, smoke. Smoke was one that I smelled a lot when Seth started coming through. And I don't know if Kevin and John, if you guys remember me, when Seth first started coming through, Kathy maybe thought that he was in a fire, but I smelled like, at one point I smelled the smoke and I could taste cigarettes in my mouth. And I was like, okay, something like something is like, I don't know if they're putting how that works. I don't really know how it all happened, but I just smelled smoke and I tasted cigarettes. So I don't know if it was related to the same thing. If that, smelling of smoke was a fire started by the cigarette, I don't really know, but it just, whatever was close to me, gave me that kind of smell and that taste. It's interesting because we also had at the same hotel, Stanley Hotel, we had the smell of roses. And I think we also encountered that at the Byers Evans when we did our mansion investigation.
Yeah.
We had also smelled roses in that location. And what was interesting is that, Mrs. Stanley, they say, well, when she's around, they tend to associate the roses with her because that was one of, I think, the flowers that she used to love to have around the hotel. And so that's kind of how she maybe comes through and presents herself to different guests. But that was something we smelled in 2 different areas of the hotel. We were up by room 217, which I believe Stephen King stayed in, right, when he got the inspiration for writing The Shining. And I was right outside of that room in the hallway when I smelled it the first time. And I looked everywhere because I thought, well, maybe there's like this, one of those scent sprayer things that like a lot of places have. And I'm like looking around. And then we went downstairs in steamers one morning and smelled it down there too. Just like it just came right by us. And it was like, whoa, like I'm smelling this. And then later they had said, and when we were in the music hall, they had said, roses is something that like Mrs. Stanley usually will, people will smell that when she's around. So I think there's been some other investigations though, like that. Like I said, Byers Evans was another one, which is just interesting. And I think like I've talked to people who have said like when they have loved ones that have passed, like I smell their cologne from time to time. Like it's like how they want me to know that they're around them. Like, so I think it's a common thing that the other side does just so that like maybe who you're interacting with or that something is there so that you can identify that.
I remember one time we were at the melting pot and I was in the bathroom with a group of people and it was just quiet. I think we were doing like an EVP session, just super, super, super quiet. And then all of a sudden this loud psst happened, scared the living hell out of everybody. And it turned out to be one of those air fresheners. Every time that thing would scare the living shit out of me.
I remember that. Yes. In my old house, there, for the most part, it was pretty peaceful, but there were times that I even had some dark experiences in that house that just didn't feel good, So, and it was always like, when I would wake up to like feed the baby and everything in, the wee hours of the morning that I never felt quite alone in that house.
So don't have babies. They bring in ghosts. I'm just kidding.
Noted.
Supernatural birth control.
I feel like there's jokes there and I'm just missing them.
So many possibilities. So what, are there any other experiences that you recall that stand out to you?
Yeah, I've had some things that like a lot, like I've said, has come to me when I'm like kind of wide open. And I had one day where I had a golden retriever. This is not the same golden retriever that I have right now, but my previous golden retriever, Willow, was around. And I came home from work one day and it was I had an investigation up in the mountains that I was going to be doing that evening. And so I came home from work, I was going to try to grab a quick nap before I went up to the mountains because, I knew it was going to be a late night. But when I walked in the door, she was just like crazy, like just acting so strange. And I didn't know what was going on with her. And she had hip dysplasia. So she didn't like to go upstairs ever. She usually stayed down in the main level at nighttime and everything. When we would go to bed, she just didn't want to do stairs. And that day she just came right upstairs with me. She didn't want me to leave her. And literally when I went to go crawl in bed to take a nap, she just was right there next to me, just whining. And I was like, what's the matter? I'm here. And I was trying to calm her down and everything. And it was really weird because around the same time, I had so many things happening around the house that just were bizarre that you try to just debunk things just oh, it's your appliances going out or it's, we had these carbon monoxide detectors and they would start alarming, but there was never anything there. I even had at one point, we even had an inspection in the basement to see if there was any levels that were registering or something. Cause I'm it keeps beeping. And it was really weird. It became clockwork. When I would get out of the shower at time, it would start the carbon monoxide detectors and stuff. It was just bizarre stuff like that. So all of this stuff was kind of going around the same time period within a couple weeks, things were happening. My appliances were burning out, just stuff was really weird, but she was just not herself that day. So I went to go to bed and I was laying in my room and again, just something got close to me. And that was the first time. It was kind of scary, but it was my eyes were open and I was looking up above my head. I was on my back at the time and I could see just a fleshy, it was almost like a shadow mask, but it was almost flesh colored. Like it wasn't like usually when I see shadow mass or something like that, it's black, just kind of misty, like no real form. This one was just like almost like a person standing over me, like looking, but it was all blurred. I couldn't like make out detail on the face. And again, it wasn't like like when I picked up the emotion, it was like happy, kind of like playful. Wasn't bad or like, angry or something like that. And so, but what was weird is when I was laying on my back, I felt a tug on my foot and I was like, what the heck? And that's what got my attention. And it moved over and it stood over my head, looked down at me, whatever. And then it was gone. But I always wondered if like my dog was picking up on something being in the house when I got home and like sensed its presence. And because she had never behaved like that before, it was really crazy. So that was another experience like when I was resting.
After watching Paranormal Activity, I cannot sleep with my leg off the bed at all, or my foot. I used to like that used to be my sweet spot. Covered in the blankets, one leg poked out and dangling over the bed. And after watching that movie, nope, that is a hard no. So when you said that it tugged at your foot, I was like, oh no.
I'm with you on that one. I don't like dangling my feet over the bed at all either. It's just,
Yep.
I'm the same way.
The other thing that I just think is kind of a different dynamic that I'd like to I guess for people to consider is that, not everything that I've experienced is like either bad or like troubling. Being a paranormal investigator and some of the experiences I've had is just being able to like really start communicating on a deeper level with spirit. Like there's been times that I believe if you're open and you're receptive, like there's messages that you can get to from spirit. Like they can give you different communications to help answer your questions if that's the preferred method that you would like to like have them chime in and help guide you or whatever. Because I believe in my spirit guides. Like that's a big belief of mine. And I think a lot of what we encounter sometimes is around like some of it does come down to what do we believe? I mean, if you don't believe spirits exist, you probably don't experience a lot of that, right? And so I believe that like my spirit guides are there to guide me. And so I've done this like little test like last year to say I want more. I'll communicate with them. I want more messages. I want more guidance. And when I know that it's a message, I also can decipher like what is a message. And so that's kind of like the method that I've established with them. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ever like had things like laid out for you, like you ask yourself a question and then there's like you like later through the day, like something presents itself and it's like an answer to what you were wondering, and it's that kind of experience that I usually get with spirit.
That's really cool. That's interesting. That's neat.
We caught an EVP while we were recording.
Oh, hush.
Woo! What is this?
And of course, Ashley heard it, and it kind of
The
rattled
one
her a
who
little
doesn't
bit.
want to hear that
Exactly.
stuff.
Yes.
I gotta ask you, what did it say? Was it good?
So I actually left it in the recording too. So I was editing and it didn't help that it was late. And I had my headphones on and I don't edit at full volume because that would just hurt. So I was editing and it was at the end of the episode. You were talking about Kevin. Yeah. Kevin had said hello to Seth and Steve and you mentioned Dottie. Or Dot. Dottie?
Dottie.
And you said Dottie, and you said Dot is for you. And as soon as you had said Dot is for you, I heard it like I was like, what is that? And at first I was thinking, and I like zoomed in on the track to see if there was any wavelength going on. I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. So I played it again and I'm like, what am I hearing? Is there something wrong with the track? So I turned it up full volume and I was just like, okay, let's see what I'm hearing. And so then I hit play again and you're like, Dottie's for you. And I hear, yes. And I was like, what? And I got chills and I'm like, nope. Because you almost don't hear it. And I know they didn't hear it the first time. When they listened through, I had to tell them where on, like what time it was going on. And I'm like, turn it all the way up. Because I almost like didn't catch it. I just have sensitive ears. So I heard this. And what's interesting is you talk right before that and you talk right after that. So you can very clearly tell that's not coming from you. The way your voice echoes in like the on the track is different. It like you're far away, right? And you're talking. This sounded like someone was pressed up against the mic saying yes. And I'm like, oh no. So I told Keith about that, and he's just like, no, it's probably a piece of paper. It's probably something. And I said, okay, here. And I put the headphones on him, turned it up, played it, and I could tell as soon as he heard it, because he's like, here you go. And he walked away. I was just like, y'all.
See, that's good though. That was a message from spirit. Like I felt very drawn to tell Kevin, like remind him about Dot, because Dot was a big part of Kevin's experiences, and he got excited to hear from her when we were doing Spirit Box. So that was like something that I felt very much like you need to, don't forget about Dot. Dot was for you. And so it's really cool that you captured the voice saying yes. Dot's still with you. It's awesome.
Hi, Dot.
Ashley doesn't want any more EVPs.
Dot, give her all of the EVPs.
No, Kevin. That gave me heebie-jeebies.
There you go.
And then I smelled marshmallows. So actually, this marshmallows were last night, and I was editing Demon Possessions Part 2 last night. So
That's a little scary.
I don't think demons smell like marshmallows. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
Unless they're trying to trick you. I mean, why not? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Sorry. We're just going to shut up about that. I don't want to freak you out, Ash.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Plus, you can always text me or call me. You know you can. So
call me, maybe. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Luana. I always love having you on. You feel like family to me. I just want to reach through and give you like a big hug. You feel like a family member.
That's awesome. I enjoy it. This is like really like a big part of my life that has been missing through some of my medical stuff. So it's like really helping me feel normal again, if that makes sense. Like just having some of my old life like incorporated, and it's something I'm going to continue to do. Like I'm getting to the point where once I get through the next couple of hurdles, I'm going to get back to, getting out there post COVID, of course, getting out there and investigating more. So anytime you guys want me to.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I definitely want to have you on again soon. So yay.
Yes. Thanks guys. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning into 3Haunted Podcast with your co-hosts. I'm John Thomas.
I'm Kevin K. Daddy.
And I'm Ashley Lunar Goddess.
If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on our social media. Hit that follow button.
You don't want to miss one spooky moment.
Hey guys. Knock knock.
Nobody's home.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Who's there?
Boo.
Boo-hoo.
Oh, why are you crying, Ash?
Because Dot scared her. Stop.
Yeah, so fuck you. You and... No, I'm not going to say it. I don't want her to haunt me.
Yeah, that's how you get ghosts.
You and the horse you rode in on.
You and the horse you rode in on. There we go. Recovered.
Boom.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.